All right, John Reichman, Bobby Alford. How you guys doing?
Doing all right,
Doing
man.
well. Doing well.
Awesome, awesome. Let's have a conversation about veterans in retirement because as a group, veterans are a little different in a couple of senses. One is fairly common if you've put some time into the military to have a pension, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And maybe before we even start, John, why don't you tell us what did you do in the military and what was your role or rank? Or you can tell I'm not a military guy, but that's okay, right? I'm
That's good.
honorary.
I was retired as a CW2 Black Hawk pilot in the Army National Guard. And I had a few deployments, had a couple of different MOSs,
Is
but
that
that's
different
my
than
pride and joy.
C4 or just as explosive? What's a CW2?
No, it's actually more explosive because it was put
Much
on
more.
me. I don't want to brag, but
Right.
yeah.
You like watching the CW? Did you watch a lot of Smallville?
You know
Oh,
what?
jeez.
Now you're calling me out because there
Now,
was a
go on.
couple of shows.
All right, we won't tell anybody.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but
Okay, how
that's
about you?
Yeah, I enlisted right out of high school. I went in as a nuclear mechanic. Did well. Got a commissioning program. Ended up as an officer on nuclear submarines. Time of my life. Ended up getting injured and got out early. So I have some of that mailbox money that we refer to as spending enough time in the military to get that pension coming in. So yeah, this is right up my alley.
So pensions are interesting. If people haven't read The Power of Zero by David McKnight, I mean, I was in the business for 9, 10 years before I knew about that book. And I knew a ton about tax-free retirement planning, but David McKnight brought something unique to the table. And veterans really would need to think about this. If you're getting a pension, okay, say you're married and you are getting a pension and it's $1,500 a month or a disability plus a pension, whatever, if it's adding up to anywhere close to your standard deduction. What's the standard deduction? Standard deduction is how much income you can have and not pay taxes on it. So if you're single, as we record this, you can make about 12,400, not pay taxes. If you're married, it's about 24,800, right? Well, if your pension is eating up the standard deduction, right? So that's the first $24,000 that's not going to be taxed. Wouldn't it be true that any money you put into a 401k or an IRA or any other kind of postponed taxes until later, you're basically guaranteeing we're going to pay taxes on those? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think another thing too to point out is that those calculations don't go into the military. As I said, I was in the Army. I don't mean to speak for Bobby, but he was in the Navy. Regardless of the branch, it falls underneath that umbrella of DoD and the use to getting that constant money. And then when you get out, and then the calculation isn't there. So it's
Mm.
similar to like what you said, the 401k, the pension. You kind of just working towards some things, and you really don't pay attention to it until about maybe you're 19 or 20, right? Right before you're about to retire. And then somebody goes, how much did you think you were going to make? And you go, well, I think I'm going to make X. And they go, nah, actually, you're going to make A, right? It's not even close to X, right? You're at the beginning. And you're like, oh man, how do I make up for that? And you're like, well, you can spend an additional time to where you can get more percentage of that retirement. So if you work 4 more years, you'll actually be at D. But then if you work 8 more years, then you're only going to reach H. You're never going to reach X. And I think that's where it's referred to as like what you said with the pensions and the 401k. I mean, Bobby, would you agree that that's similar to even in the Navy, right? That's pretty much close approach.
Yeah, the percentages are the same across all DoD. You stay in 20 years. I think it's 50% of your high 3 years, and then if you get 5 more years or 6 more years, they bump up that percentage a little bit each time. But you're never going to have, I think maybe at 40 years or something, you might have 100% retirement, but only Rickover and a few other high admirals did that.
Yeah, yeah, high
So
ranking people.
3 people have
yeah,
done it in the whole history, right?
yes,
Yeah, yeah. And all we've ever seen is just their picture, right?
yeah.
And you guys have seen
Another
this
thing.
before. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Just another thing too is that a lot of people too look towards the VA for additional income, as me and Bobby both, and a lot of veterans do. Whether you're 0% or you're 100%, that income that you're getting from the VA, you have to subtract what you're getting from the branch of military service that you're in. You cannot what they call double dip.
Mm.
People hear that, but they don't. Again, the calculation, which we all work with CalChoice, um, we put that calculation in there and putting that into effect, and it opens up the minds and eyes of everybody that like, wait a minute, these numbers aren't just going to be given to me, right? And if they are, then there's a calculation that goes in there, and it's one of those, and anybody who's ever been in the military knows that the military has their own math. So
Yeah.
whatever math they
Military
put into
math.
it is what you get.
Yeah, interesting. So you guys have been in the business long enough to kind of see the importance of this question. So tell me your thoughts when you ask somebody, because if you're getting a pension, that becomes even more important. When you ask somebody, do you think taxes are going up or down between now and when you pass away? So we're planning for retirement. We want to work backwards with this goal in mind, these amazing golden years. What is retirement planning? It's basically income replacement. Let me make sure I have $7,000 a month coming in when I'm not working anymore, or whatever you need for your lifestyle. We don't want to be minimalist. You don't want to go, well, I could get by on MREs and a tent. No, you want to like plan for a great retirement. Golden years should be golden, right? So you're like, no, I need $10,000 a month, whatever it is. Taxes are an issue, though. So when you ask people, do you think taxes are going up or down between now and when you pass away? What's the most common answer you're hearing?
Go ahead, Bobby.
Yes. The answer is yes. When I probe deeper, a lot of people don't understand why, but they do think everything's going up. So that's a good fundamental, like probably 98% of people think it's going to go up.
They think taxes are going up, and you say, why? And they say, well, we can't afford Social Security. We can't afford Medicare. That's just what happens. We just had the coronavirus bailout checks or whatever they're called, right? We couldn't even afford the bailout of Wall Street in the early 2000s, and now we're doing more of them, right? And so people think taxes are going to go up. Here's what's incredibly important. Whenever we work with a veteran, particularly if they have a pension or some sort of disability, some sort of steady income that's already coming in, is we say, do you think taxes are going up or down? And if they say, I think they're going to go up, we're going to have a really serious look at how they're saving right now, because the most common way to save for retirement, if you're in now your civilian job or whatever you're doing, 401k or IRA. Why? Because the mantra, postpone taxes to a later date when you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Well, will you be in a lower tax bracket? Will you be in a lower tax bracket if you're a good boy or a good girl? You pay off your mortgage, have no deductions. You get all the kids out of the house by the time you're 65. You have no deductions. You're not contributing to IRAs and 401ks. You just have Social Security, a pension, and now distributions. And what you can comment on what you're finding. What I'm finding is many of the people that are trying to postpone taxes to a later date, when they answer, no, I think taxes will be higher, we actually look at, they're putting money in a 401k or they're putting money in a 403b or an IRA, saving 10%, 12%, 22, 24, saving something below 24% right now and pushing it into the future going, I'll just pay whatever. I'll pay the mystery, whatever. So I put in 6,000, save 22%. When I'm taking 60,000 a year, I'll pay whatever the IRS can come up with at that point and pass through Congress. That's quite a gamble, right? Yeah. And I don't see the military as a gambling institution as much as a strategic planning. Work backwards from what the goal is and set yourself up for the highest probability. What are your thoughts?
You know what? What's funny is like you just said, the military, and I tell people this all the time, we take a target and we backwards plan and we try to do the path of least resistance, right? And you can break that down however you want to do it, and different methods and different branches do it different ways. But what's funny is that there is something in the military that they provide with additional retirement goals in place, which is a TSP, right? A thrift savings plan. What that is that's a special name for 401k or an IRA.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of people don't know that calculation. And if I could pull up 5 people, I could pull up 50 that said almost exactly what you just said. I'm going to put in this percentage and this, that, and the other thing. And then you have that one guy maybe out of those 10 that watch it every day, like the stock market, because he's going to switch from the iPhone to this fund and all that. But yes, 100%. I would say where it is most lacking in any branch of the military is the target planning for the individual soldier and what they plan to do outside of the military. I mean, Bobby, would you agree?
Yeah. I would add to both of those statements. Charlie, you said, it's not a risky institution, right? They, the government, the DoD, they choose a target, work their way backwards. What they're also not is they're also not an education institution. So the financial education that I have gotten since I've gotten out, I went out and I got my MBA, I did all these things, but I really didn't learn what we're talking about until I self-studied for the last 18 to 24 months, really digging into how my life and my friends' lives and my family's lives are affected. Yeah. I got lucky and I found Charlie and I found Cal Choice, and my education just went through the roof. It's been amazing. But all of these things are not discussed. And the joke that I heard when I first got into the industry was people will spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they will planning their retirement. And hand to God, that is 1,000% true. You talk to people about the future of taxes, you talk to them about their pensions. It's just this wall of blank stares. They don't know what they don't know, and they kind of fear it. When in reality, we're just showing them that it's math. And this is how to think about it in bite-sized chunks so that it's not overwhelming. And if you happen to be active duty, when you discover us and what we can do, holy mackerel, there's so much open to you. Because I personally, and I know John was the same way, a lot of my income was tax-free at the time. You get to talk to a nuke like me. You go to a foreign, a war zone where you can re-enlist and get a $50,000, $60,000 bonus tax-free day one. And you don't know what the hell to do with it because it's not an education. It's just like, oh my God, I can get a new house, or oh my God, I can get a new car. I had a friend who bought a new car and his wife had some elective cosmetic surgery every year because he had cash. And I'll talk to him in a few years and he'll be nowhere near his retirement goals because there's just no education. And that's what we hope to close the gap on.
And am I understanding properly that anybody that gets out of the military, is it sort of like when someone leaves a job, the old 401k is now available, all these people retiring, if they had money in the TSP, they're allowed to then do what they want with that. It's not stuck in the military. That can be rolled to an IRA and use the amazing strategies that we've learned. So whether you're talking about chunks or streams, whether it's I have a chunk of money that I put into a TSP before I thought about this, that I'm just postponing taxes until later. I didn't know my pension was going to chew up all the standard deduction and then Social Security might be taxed. I really can't afford to postpone more tax till later when I'm taking out the big numbers to live on. If they go, oh no, I have money in a TSP, or they say, I am contributing. I made that election. I thought that was right, which is understandable. It's the mantra. It's one of the sacred cows. It's just no longer true. But they're doing it, saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't think TSPs give a match, so they're probably not getting a match, right? They're just putting away whatever 8% of their.
When I got out, they weren't, but I don't know if they are now.
I don't think they have matches. So, I mean, the only tempting thing, honestly, about some of these employer-based plans is the match, but you're still stuck in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds with a mystery balance at a mystery tax rate. So when we work with people, we go, do you have chunks of money that are stuck in there? They're stuck pre-tax, or do you have money that you're contributing monthly towards that pre-tax? And now you've changed your mind and say, no, I think taxes are going up. I don't want to do that anymore. That opens up a whole world of amazing strategies. And then in the comprehensive financial planning model, which is, less than 1/10 of 1% of advisors in the country even focus on all of this, but in the comprehensive merit planning model, mortgage plan, estate plan, retirement plan, insurance plan, tax plan, veterans have the most incredible advantage in the mortgage world. And I don't think people realize how much the world has changed since the Depression when they say mortgages are bad, you should pay off your loans, where today you can borrow at 2.5% or 3% and keep your money making 6 or 7%. There's literally 100% arbitrage on not paying off your mortgage, using other people's money. You can have $500,000 in an investment and owe $500,000 to a bank and you're still debt free. You're just debt free on a balance sheet. This debt cost me 3%. I'm making 6%. Don't pay it off ever, never. Don't pay it off. There's no slavery. This isn't the Depression, right? Like if loans were at 14, it's the middle of the 80s, and your money's only making 7, yeah, give up the 7 to save the 14. But when we can show you how to make money at 6 or 7, and your loan only costs you 2 or 3, and it's tax deductible, the beauty in the world of the veteran is they can go, oh my goodness, I put $300,000 down when I bought this house because I thought Susie Orman told me I'd be a good boy if I did that, or a good girl. I want that money back. And through VA loans, they can actually get all of it back. Or if they sell that house and buy another one, they can put down 0. I mean, I was in the mortgage industry in the early 2000s when everybody could have 100% financing. And it was incredible because it's such a powerful tool to have money you can borrow cheaply, inexpensively, and write it off if it's set up properly, and keep your own money working for you and never kill your sheep. But don't you both agree, having seen some of my stuff and what we're learning at Cal Choice, don't you kind of both agree the ability to never have a single dollar stuck in your house is unique to veterans, and they would need to know how to wield that tool. They need advice. If the military is not an educational institution, right? I see it. I watched too much Officer and a Gentleman to go into the military when I was young. I'm like, I don't want anybody ripping off my head and pooping down my throat. I'm not going in there. Luke Gossett Jr., whatever that guy is, scared the crap out of me. So I just didn't do it, right? Sorry. But it's not a hold your hand, educate you guidance.
No.
like department as much as it is a like discipline and
Correct.
work backwards tactically and make stuff happen. Change people,
You
turn
get-
them into what you want, right?
You get amazingly educated in what you need to do your job, but that's it.
A need to know basis.
Yep.
Yep, basically.
And on top of that, I would say that if there is any type of instruction, especially Bobby, as you become a leader, you're told to tell your soldiers, hey, look, save your money, right? All jokes aside, I can honestly probably name a few things off the top of my head that Bobby already did. Tattoos, you get married, you have a kid, you buy a car, and you go on trips, whatever it is, right? And buy a house. So there's 6
Yep.
things. That's what primarily we do as military people. And then also, we're also told when you get that 60,000, hey, look, save onto it. And when we say save, what's the first thing that we think about? Put it into a savings account. And a lot of people hold it into a checking or savings account if they don't blow it on those 6 things I just mentioned. And that's a pretty common thing. Everybody knows it.
Right.
So I think that, and on top of that, the other caveat is to, and this isn't a bad thing, but we're taught to not have debt. So what you were just talking about paying off the house is something that we focus in on. I mean, like, I can't tell you how many veterans are like, oh man, I'm going to pay off my house in 15 years and doing these things. And even I'm just as guilty. My wife is a veteran as well. And we were like, we're going to put $500 extra every month onto our house. And then we get educated on it. And we're like, I'm not going to do that anymore. You know, like I'm going to use
Put the 500 where it's making 6, not where it's saving you 3. It's just, it's very
Exactly
basic,
right.
very basic. It's just, it's contrarian, right?
That's it. It's
just
very
contrarian.
basic when you understand it and it's taught to you, but it is very contrarian to what we all grew up with.
So let's quantify this, and I'll get your opinion, because we live in the world where Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Fidelity, UBS, all those companies are kind of the most famous in financial services. In a sense, they do one type of financial planning, which was really popular, called money management. They help you buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and kind of more risk, more reward gambling that worked really well from the 70s to the late 1990s. It hasn't worked as well in the last 20 years, but it's still very popular. If a veteran went to one of the name brand sort of big companies like that, they're not going to know mortgage planning, and they're not going to know tax-free retirement planning. I think those two tools alone, there's other tools, those 2 tools alone, in my opinion, not working with a name brand company, but working with a specialist like us, just those 2 tools, I think without spending another penny, you're at 50 to 70% more retirement income. So like if you were going to retire on 10 grand, you can have 15,000 to 17,000. You're going to retire. You weren't going to retire until you're 65. We can retire you at 55. You know, how to retire 5 years early on twice the income is one of my educational platforms out there, because we're working with efficiencies, right? As a matter of fact, John, you have some background with helicopters, where I'm pretty sure aerodynamics and balance and all that kind of stuff is super important. Sometimes you're just doing a little bit of a tweak so you don't have a wobble or whatever. Imagine you're driving down the highway and your wheels are right. Your gas mileage is horrible, plus your experience, and you do a little bit of a fix, a little balancing or whatever, and now the thing flies smooth or drives smooth. That's really what we're talking about. Is we don't need you to write us a check. You don't have to pay $2,500 for the advice. We've just discovered something that for people with pensions and the ability to do whatever they want with their mortgages, to either have their money in the house and stop it from earning interest, or to have their money out still working for them and use other people's money, veterans have both of those tools available to them. And that combination of home equity planning and tax-free retirement planning, I truly believe is 50 to 100% more income for the veteran without spending any more money.
I think it's certainly case by case, as we both know, but I think that is a really good, easy target to hit. I think what we can do, unique with the mortgage planning and unique with the tax-free retirement, is build options for the veteran around their pension. If they want to do 30 years and they know for sure that's what they're going to do, and that's great, everybody should do what they want, but that money will be taxable from now till the end of time.
Right.
And so what we need to do is build the other areas of your life, whether it's mortgage, tax-free retirement, all the things around, okay, this pension will be forever taxable. Let's build everything else to make sure your life is in a better place.
Exactly.
And so by just doing that tweak, just knowing where their vision is going to go, I think 50% more income in retirement is a low bar to hit. I think we crush that.
And you never put your head in the sand. from what I understand. It like
No.
this, the military never says, well, just ignore that. Like, here's this alarm going off, or it looks like, this enemy plane is coming toward you. Never just like put your head in the sand. What's the Wile E. Coyote thing where the train's coming? So he shuts the,
Yeah,
he shuts the shades, right?
Yeah.
So that never happens. And we're literally bringing people into the future going, look at this enemy coming. Your
Yep.
pension is chewing up all the free money, which means everything else is going to be taxed. Do you control how much tax you get? No, you have a business partner called the IRS, where every year they vote on how much of your profits they get.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to postpone that down 10, 20, 30 years and just go, I hope the IRS is nice to me as the country struggles and can't afford anything. That's not strategic or tactical at all, right? Investing is based on probabilities. Marginal tax rates are about as low as they've ever been at 37 when we record this, and the country's in trouble, and the IRS only exists to raise tax revenue, right? So what's the most strategic thing to do when you go, I see a problem coming in the future that my blessing of pension creates a tax problem. Therefore, how do I save the rest of TSP and IRAs, those pre-tax choices could end up really hurting you. And that's where we want to create some clarity and give you some ideas.
I would like to even say that when we are trained in the military, regardless of branch, when we see a target, whether it be the enemy or whatever it is, right? Even a PT test, when we go at it, we're charging directly at it, right? And now we're not blandly trained. We have our training. Me and Bobby were talking about that earlier. You're trained tactically and technically proficient in whatever you do, but we are told to charge at something. So if you're charging at something in a traditional way, or if you're charging at something too late, so as Bobby said, somebody wants to spend 30 years in the military, great. Why not start planning now instead of doing that last, it's getting kind of close, right? And we all know those people. We've all served with them, civilian side too, right? We all have those loved ones that are saying, I want to be retired in 30 years. You're like, in 30 years, you're going to be 80. Did you do the math? It's pretty simple math.
Yeah.
And I would say that is the key is to try to get I almost said soldier, but we'll say veteran in general. A veteran in general started sooner than later, because then that way we can plan better for that pension, plan better around that taxes, because say something does come up, like Bobby said, I was too injured and I was out before I thought. I was the type of guy, I was going to do 30 years. You know what I'm saying? I was going to fly helicopters until they told me, dude, you are getting out. Well, unfortunately for me, that was about 15 years shorter than what I had planned. And that right there is an eye opener. And part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, me and Bobby were talking previously to this recording, me, all three of us, about that, is that sometimes things can come unexpected. And I believe that in a veteran's mind, we don't think, A, we're ever going to get hurt. B, we think if we're going to stay in, we're going to stay in forever. And C, we think that whatever we're doing, because we're taught to be that confident in what we're doing, is the right way, especially if we're told by a higher up or somebody that they brought in, here's so-and-so's wife and she works as this and she wants to give you some advice. And we've all had those briefs where you're like, who is this? And who is even that this lady's husband? I don't even know if he's in our unit. So in saying that, I think time and focusing in on that target sooner than later is key. Bobby, would you agree? And I think that's what going along with what you're saying, Charlie, with the TSP and the planning. And
I think just to put a bow on this metaphor, I think it's exactly the same thing. When we are aware of a target, we go head, even a PT test or enemy or whatever, we go head on into it. We use our training and our skills and we just conquer. That's what we do. It's what we're trained to do. And it's what we will do. I would say the one thing that this dialogue, this company, the people that you're watching this video, we are helping you see a target you didn't know was there before.
Right.
And if you don't know there's a problem, you can't fix it. And that's the one thing. I didn't have any idea when I was serving in the military that my Social Security could get taxed. That seems so crazy to me.
Right.
You're taxing me now for Social Security and then you're going to do it again later?
Yeah.
Mind blown. That's a very simple thing that once you know it, and it's easy and you can avoid it. But the fact that I didn't know that, I had, like I said, I had my MBA, I had all these things and I didn't know that. Like, who the hell? Yeah. So this is helping you say your pension is amazing. Your Social Security is amazing. All these great things, but they can hurt you in the long run. And we're here to show you that they can. Now, what you want to do about that is your own business. But if you see an obstacle and you see a target and you want to fix it, little tweaks here and there, as Charlie said, is all you need. And John and I have talked to many, many people that didn't know these things. These are basic things that no one teaches you. We are here to educate you and arm you with the right information and skills to make your retirement or life cash flow better.
Right.
Now, what you do with that is up to you. But if you're a veteran that, like I know, like John knows, you're going to tackle this problem because now you see it, and your head won't be in the sand. You won't be closing the curtains like Wiley. You'll charge right through it, and you'll fix this with little tweaks now that will pay huge dividends in the future. And that's all I got to say about that.
I mean, here's the beautiful part: if you've been trained through nurture and nature, like most people don't end up in the military if they don't want to listen to instructions. I was too rebellious, I was like, no frats, no military. I watched too much Officer and a Gentleman. But if you already have that ability to take instruction, then you go really learn how to take instruction, how to trust, how to be a part of a group or a unit or whatever it's called in your branch. That's so helpful when it comes to this kind of stuff, because we can provide leadership. And what is real leadership? Bobby just mentioned it. It's not telling people what to do. It's creating the dashboard or the cockpit or the windshield. It's like, just let these men and women see what's happening. If I don't change, what happens? And then they see it, and instinctively, I think they're going, well, I got to fix that. And then how do I go at this? How do we make this change? And we make that change. So let's wrap it up with that thought, which is, you've already mastered probably the hardest part in self-discovery, like getting yourself to have discipline and do stuff when you're supposed to, right? You think back, man, all those sit-ups I did, I wouldn't have done it if I was sitting at home drinking beer, but I get myself into an environment of leadership, and out of me comes the best of the best. That's really what we're doing in the financial planning, wealth creation, and retirement world for veterans, is going, let me paint this picture. Let me really create the optics or whatever, where you can see it, the problems that we see. You can tell us, do you think it's a problem? And then you go, how do I fix it? And we go, here's what we did with the last 2,000 people. Here's what we've learned from doing 5,000 of these, or here's what we've learned in 17 years. Does that sound like a good wrap up?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
my thoughts, you tell me what you think. My thoughts are, even if we got to the end of a review, which is in theory, it's possible that we go, you're doing everything perfectly. Maybe in 2.5 years, when this event changes, we'll put a little ticker here in the calendar. Let's have a conversation, because there'll be a decision. You're getting transferred. Should you keep the house and buy another one? Should you sell it and buy another? Whatever. Should you keep it? We might pat him on the back and say, you're perfect. Military wife.
That's my wife. Yep.
Join the team. Join the team.
She's part of the recording.
I know she made it. We might have someone where we say, you're perfect. But normally what we find is really exciting improvements that don't cost any money. So my question really, as we end, is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the chances are, 1 being the least, 10 being the most, that whether we make changes or just give a little education or make some incredible improvements, that the person loves the experience of the good news or good news review? Scale of 1 to 10, what do you think their chances are they love the experience?
10.
10.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything that information, because that's all it is, just information. I don't think there's anything information can be negative. It's, hey, good news or good news. You're either perfect, or here's some tweaks that you can change if you would like to. And you say, I don't want to do it right now. Cool. But you are armed with the information. And I've never met anybody who saw an obstacle, a veteran that saw an obstacle and didn't want to fix it.
Right.
So it's good news or good news is the way to frame it. It's going to be a good experience.
So when we go through and say, here's something I noticed, you want to fix it or ignore it? They always say fix it. Nobody ever says, just ignore that one. I'll just pay taxes or whatever. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your wisdom. It's a really important group of people. You know what I mean? Like this country we live in is absolutely amazing because of you guys. And I thank you for that. I'm super stoked to join with you in this passion to provide clarity and the greatest, let's make the golden years golden, especially for the heroes that deserve it.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.